Welcome to the 75 podcast. On this episode, we're going to get to know Mark Pinsley. Mark is a candidate for Pennsylvania's 7th congressional district. This is the beautiful Lehigh Valley part of Pennsylvania. Mark is going to talk to us a little bit about his personal story, his motivation to run, and we'll learn about his values, his priorities, and how he plans to come out on top in the primaries and ultimately win in November 2026. This is the first episode of the 75's Candidate Coalition Series. We hope you enjoy. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.
Have you ever wondered how our political system became so intertwined with big money? Well, it wasn't always like this. Decades ago, there were limits and regulations in place to prevent corruption and ensure fair elections. But then came a series of pivotal court decisions that established that money equals speech, setting the stage for the wealthy to have an outsized influence on politics. It's no wonder that over 75% of Americans believe it's time to take big money out of politics. Join us as we explore how money influences U.S. politics in profound and sometimes unsettling ways. The 75 podcast starts now.
Welcome to the 75 podcast. I'm Michael Hahn, the founder of the 75, and today I'm very proud and happy to have Mark Pinsley on the show today, and we're going to be discussing, Mark's campaign as he runs for the Pennsylvania 7th congressional district. Mark is a he's a business leader, he's an entrepreneur, but more importantly, he's a husband and he's a father to 2 young children, and he's currently the Lehigh County Controller, where he is in charge of oversight to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse in the Lehigh Valley area. So I'd like to welcome Mark to the show. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's excellent. Thanks for coming on. So a little bit unique, like how we kind of first met. We were connected through somebody at American Promise who put us in touch together. And it's funny how these things kind of come together that way. And I'm just feel really privileged to, as we're working on building this coalition of candidates and of people to raise awareness around money and politics, to have connected with you. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm really excited about what you guys are doing. I mean, this is probably one of the more important things that we can do is get big money out of politics.
Tell me a little bit more about yourself, like, your story, where you're coming from, and what you hope to do. What's your motivation?
Yeah, so it's funny. Like I kind of, we grew up, in a divorced family, so it wasn't like we were well-to-do by any stretch of the imagination. I went into the Army Reserves. It helped me pay for Kutztown University, which is here in Pennsylvania, where I started. And eventually I still couldn't afford to go. I was paying my own way. So I moved up to Boston, Massachusetts, and I worked for my grandfather. And then I went to school at night up there at Kutztown University. And like from there, I was actually pretty fortunate. I got lucky in a lot of different things, So I had worked for my grandfather for a period of time. So we sold furniture to hotels and restaurants. From that, I learned about purchasing in general. And I was a computer guy. So growing up, I had programmed things like that. And so I understood that there was inefficiency going on in the purchasing process. So I had developed a tool that allowed big companies and little companies to communicate electronically. Today, you would call it e-commerce. Then, like, e-commerce wasn't a thing. But it would allow you to communicate between the two companies. And so, like, I started a little business that did that and sold it. I ended up working for a very large company in the aviation space that was kind of like the eBay for the aviation space. So if you had a black box that wasn't working, you would come to our system. We would tell you where a black box was that you could buy right away. And then I ended up working for another large company as the global product manager which was in personalized nutrition. And so our role was specifically to help people get healthier.
Cool.
That division was spun off. When it was spun off, I ended up buying a small company in the skincare industry. So we sold to spas and dermatologists. And this was around, maybe 2011 that happened. Then 2016 happened where, Trump ended up winning. And that was really the beginning of my political career, I suppose. I was never really
about that. Yeah. I was
I mean, I was never really interested in politics. Yeah. What ended up happening was, so I'm Jewish. So, when he was talking about the Mexicans and the Muslims and all that kind of stuff during his first race, it really offended me. And I was worried about what would come of that. And so, he ended up getting me started. Prior to that, every 4 years I'd wake up, I'd knock on some doors for whatever the president was. Then I would go back to sleep for 4 years and come again. And now they would call me a super voter. I vote every single time there's an election, because I think that is the way that we're going to change our country. It's got to be through elections, assuming we can have free and fair elections. And part of not being free and fair, by the way, is the amount of money that's going into these elections, right?
That's a key.
So while
part of it, hopefully, there's other aspects of fairness. And right now, I see some stories that are making me think maybe they're not so fair outside. But
they're trying to gerrymander Texas
elections,
again, right? Yeah, so pick up
that's
spot seats. So rather than
right.
Yeah, I mean, this is where Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema actually hurt us, because I think the first bill that they put into place during, when Biden first ran was HR 1 was supposed to stop gerrymandering across all states. And they wouldn't vote for it. Now, all the other Democrats voted for it. And so we couldn't get it past the Senate. In this case, I think they were being asked to end the filibuster for this one thing, and they chose not to do it. And so that's why we are where we are. So now, Texas is going to try and, steal the election legally.
Well, yeah, right? I know it's not right. I get it that there's a big news story about Texas changing, and then California now, as a counter changing. Right. And this is unfortunately commonplace for the political system, right? So Florida did it, New York did it, Democrat states, Republican leaning states, they're all doing it. So yeah, there needs to be some kind of reform in that area to keep it somewhat more stable, so that people aren't continuously changing and using it as a tool to just win on principle.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Win on your priorities, win on what you believe in, and trying to win based on just changing lines in the sand.
No, I agree.
We had a term for it. Growing up, they called it Bush League. It's come on, you can't win on your own. You got to cheat to win, but they all do it. So what's so wrong about it if everybody's doing it, right?
It's still
what's
wrong about it.
It's still wrong.
Yeah. I mean, basically, we should be fighting for the people that are voting ultimately, right? So who are the voters, and they should all every voice should be heard. Unfortunately, the way our elections are set up, that's not really true. And of course, the Electoral College makes it even worse, because it tries to even things out, but it's not effective. And we'll see what happens. I think that'll be a harder thing to get rid. I think it would be harder to get rid of the Electoral College than it would be to get money out of politics. So
that's the crazy thing. I agree with you too, because the thing with money into politics is you just have to get some people in there that believe what the American people believe. And the fact to me, it's just that it doesn't really get discussed. So you have leadership that's not discussing it, and then you have politicians that are not discussing it because they don't want to piss off leadership. Because if they piss off leadership, then they're not going to get that congressional PAC money, right? That helps them maintain their control or their seat. So that's the trickle down of the power to not talk about it. And then the media, of course, is not going to talk about it because they're on the money train. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. The problem is both parties, like that money coming in.
How do you crack it? How do you crack? How do you crack through it? because they put a ceiling on candidates without money, basically with like a media blackout. How
I mean, one of the things
I know we're kind of cutting to the chase, and this is like the beautiful thing of what I wanted to do today is just kind of keep this free flowing conversation. But we're getting right into the conversation right now. How do you break through this system to be successful in a primary?
Well, so ultimately, as you know, like we really do need to get rid of Citizens United and any of the laws that were sort of around the Citizens United. But that said, like there are things that we can do in the meantime, right? So increase transparency, like so that you like these super PACs, who's putting money into the super PACs, like make sure that everything is, understood where money is coming from and who's getting which money. That's like step one, right? Like that's the least you could do would be to try and make things as transparent as possible, and then to the extent that you can cut out some of these other things, like we have something called independent expenditures, right? Where someone can come in basically on your behalf and spend money however they want. We could potentially try and get rid of those. And like, once again, like part of the problem with that is because the Supreme Court has defined companies as in people, right? And being able to have free speech. And they're saying that money is free speech. And so like one of the things I also think, is like, even though the Supreme Court has said it doesn't mean we shouldn't try and, obviously the strongest thing we can do is create an amendment to our Constitution. That's the way to go about this. But in the meantime, we should be keep creating bills, right? And let it go all the way up to the Supreme Court. Like let's do what the Republicans do in that case, right? So like, they did this for Roe versus Wade for 50 years, taking case after case after case, trying to chip away at it. We have to do the same thing until such time as we get an amendment so that we're chipping away at, let's try and say that a company isn't a person. Let's put that into a bill. Like, see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's let it go all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Put it into a constitutional amendment, because that's what I'm pitching. Is
that's what
saying, why not put it into what? Yeah, right. Like
you have to put it into a constitutional amendment.
Are you supportive of that? Like I saying, like these corporations are not people, and somehow, in an appropriate phrasing, whether it's as explicit as that, corporations are not people or do not share in corporate personhood rights. Is that something that you would be supportive of?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think that the constitutional amendment is the way to go, because.
How about money is speech as well?
Same thing. Money is not speech. Right? It can't be speech, right? Like, I mean, because otherwise that always means that the person with the most money is the loudest, right? And like free speech was meant to be us speaking to each other without government interference.
One key word is that
corporation. What's that?
Free. Yeah. Free speech.
Yeah.
Right. It's not supposed to be paid speech. Paid speech could be regulated, and paid speech is also known as advertising to me when you're doing that. So,
and that tracks too when you think about it, right? Because advertising costs money.
Right.
So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So good. I'm glad to hear that. I know we when we first met, we talked a little bit, and I don't think I got your actual take on that. So
I guess part of what I was saying is, it's like, not only should we be going after an amendment, which is harder, right? Just not harder, like harder in the sense that it just takes more effort. Excuse me. But like in the meantime, we can still create bills, right? So if we don't have the votes yet to get an amendment done, which I absolutely think should be the end goal. In the meantime, create bill after bill after bill after bill and take it to the Supreme Court. Right? If we can get the presidency and the Senate and the House, we should at the very least be creating bills. They talk about transparency, they talk about personhood, all those things. And like, let's let it go to the Supreme Court over and over and over again. Right. And chip away at it little by little while we're still trying to get the amendment.
I feel like I could be just looking at it through an optimistic prism here, but I can't believe that out of everybody in the House and everybody in the Senate, that they support the system that's in place right now with the money aspect. So we can't be starting from zero, right? It's not just you and I, there is a large probably group in the House, probably a smaller group in the Senate is my guess, of people that are supportive of this change, but whether or not they can come out against it at this point. What's your take on that?
No, I agree with you. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people that would like to get rid of it. The people that don't want to get rid of it are the ones that benefit the most from it, right? So if you're getting several $1,000,000, you're probably not the person that wants to get rid of it. Excuse me, little hay fever going on. Yeah, so you're probably not the person that wants to get rid of it. Um, and it's on both sides. It's not just the Republicans or just the Democrats. It's both groups. Don't want to give up money, but like that's the only way that the people are going to be able to be in charge is if my $10 donation or $250 donation can't be outspent by a corporation who can put $1,000,000 in. Makes no sense.
So how about in this race in the Pennsylvania 7th? What's the dynamic with the funding between the candidates? The incumbent, I assume, is probably getting some decent funding. Are there other candidates? How is your funding? How do you plan on doing that?
Yeah, so we just started like 2.5 weeks ago, and it's like I mean, first off, it's August, but it's also slow, right? And the way you do it is you literally pick up the phone and you make calls, and so you get a list of people that have donated in the past, and you literally start just dialing for dollars. So this is like, that's one way of doing it. Then the second way of doing it is like what the Republicans and some of the Democrats do, right? They go to Coca-Cola or they go to, whatever, and they get them to endorse them. And then Coca-Cola, the max they can give is 5,000, right? Like that's the max.
What candidate, right? Yeah.
But they can then have a super PAC that can have unlimited money, and so that's
and they can give money to another organization who then can give it to the super PAC as well. So they can actually give it, and that's the dark money. So you give it to a faith-based or
church,
some other type group that, as long as they spend 49% on political and 51% on their organization's mission, they don't need to put where their donors come from. And then that money can go to a super PAC, right? And that's the dark money aspect of it, which I assume you will not be getting anything or taking any dark money or what?
And to be fair, I don't think the other Democratic candidates will either, at least not in the primary. I don't think any of them will in the general either, although I don't know them all well enough. We won't be taking that kind of corporate PAC money.
You won't. Yeah, your campaign won't be. And you signed a pledge, a money out of politics pledge, an integrity pledge with, I'm going to give a shout out to the Money Out of Politics movement. And their website is moneyoutofpolitics.org. And you can see the candidate integrity pledge on there. And you can also see all the candidates that have signed it so far. And Mark is one of them that has signed it. So.
Yeah, no, they're doing a good job, I will say. Like they're really trying to get the word out, just like you. The more people that we have talking about it, the better, as far as I'm concerned, right? Like it's going to take a long time to do this, right? We got to get people that want to do it.
What's a long time?
And that's not easy.
How do you define like a long time? Because this is hot right now. This is
what I would say is
seriously hot to me.
Yeah. So what I would say is like, at this moment, it's going to be at least 2.5 years because you're going to have to get a Democrat in presidency, a Democrat in the Senate, and a Democrat in the House. Like all of them have to be the same, unless you can find like Republicans that are willing to do it as well, which maybe you can. But
we're looking for Republicans. We're looking for Republicans right now with the 75 coalition. So we want to connect with Republican candidates that want to get money out of politics, because this is nonpartisan issue. This is the American people support this overwhelmingly. The name the 75 is a representation of the overwhelming majority of people that view money in politics as a destructive force in America, and a critical issue in America. So we're still looking for those candidates, and we know you're out there. So reach out to us.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, I really do. I mean, I think nevertheless, we're going to have a president that wants to get rid of it too. Now that could be a Republican president. It's not this Republican president. He will not want to get rid of money in politics because he likes the money.
Drain the swamp. I was surprised that there was nothing about like getting money out of politics in the big beautiful bill. I thought that was the opportunity to really do some campaign finance reform and get big money out in this because there was excuses the first his first presidential time 2016 to 2020. But now he puts through the mega bill and 1,000 pages, and there's nothing in it about campaign finance reform. It seemed like such a layup to me as a guy, as a president that campaigned so vocally about money in politics or draining the swamp, to not have it in there at all. I would imagine, I don't know the polling on it, but I imagine his base should be super pissed about the fact that it hasn't been addressed since then, and maybe they are, and it just doesn't get the media attention because, like I said,
no, I don't think they are. No. I mean, he wants to. I mean, like, look, he's doing everything with Bitcoin and all this kind of other stuff. Like, he is not trying to get money out of politics by any stretch of the imagination, unless you want to talk about giving, the rich $1 trillion tax break. Maybe he got money out of politics that way. Like, he gave it back to them rather than having it in the government. So, like, I don't know. That's not where he's headed. Right. But is where we need it.
I mean,
the Big Beautiful Bill is a great example of money, right? Like, so, it was less than 35% of the public wanted the Big Beautiful Bill to pass. Like, it wasn't that many people that wanted it, but because there's money in politics, because he had power, he was able to pass this bill that really nobody wanted. I mean, other than the rich.
Yeah, it's only seen,
and that's typical.
Town halls that people are really pushing back against the things that were in there, and Medicaid cuts especially.
Yeah, I mean, the Medicaid cuts are brutal. I'm as the controller, I sign checks for Medicaid. We signed about $103 million worth of checks for mental and intellectual disabilities. And so, what are you going to do? Like, what are they going to do when they have to fill out paperwork? More than they used to. So now you have to fill it out twice a year. Many of these people cannot fill out that paperwork. They don't have the mental capacity to do so. And then, like, the same thing with they now have to show that they're working every month. Once again, who's going to fill out that paperwork, right? And so they know what they're doing. They're knocking people off that are legitimately able to have Medicaid, and they're calling it waste. And it's not fraud. It's not waste. It's not abuse. These are people that are entitled.
Right, and that money that might save by actually cutting that. So let's say you're actually saving money, right? Because people are suffering, or will, right? When it kind of comes into, not right today, but 2 years, 4 years from now, if nothing changes, and this is the case, then there'll be increased suffering in the country because of it.
Absolutely, and they're not really saving it either because they gave it to the rich.
Bingo. Right. That's exactly where I was going, is that it just was given away. And the bill, they say, is the budget office said, by making the tax cuts permanent from the first administration, it now adds $3 trillion to the debt, the national debt. Right. So we're at 39-40 trillion. Now, we're like, not super old, but we're old. So we've been around when former President Clinton was running a trade surplus or a budget surplus. At that time, I remember that they said that we would be out of the national debt by like 2025 or 2030. What happened? Instead of being out of the national debt, we're 30 trillion in it. It just absolutely exploded. I don't want to harp on that.
It's because the Republicans keep cutting. They cut taxes, but they don't really cut spending, right? They cut the spending that they don't like, and they put new spending in that they do like. Which, look, like, I mean, that's why voting matters, right? You have to decide what kind of country you want to live in, what rules you want to live by. And, like, one of the things to think about too is, like, when you think about the national debt, like, most people think, China owns a good portion of our national debt. It's not true. They do own our national part of our national debt. Japan also owns part of our national debt. And there's a bunch of other countries that own part of our national debt. The largest portion of our national debt is owned by us, right? So it's, the government owes itself money, or the government owes the people money. And so when you think about it, like, who are the people that are loaning the government money, right? Because, like, how do you do that? You buy bonds, right? So if you buy bonds, you now have lent the government money. Well, who owns most of the bonds, right? Like, it's going to be the rich, right? And so rather than
not
the
just
rich
the rich, but like, yeah, the mega rich.
the mega rich, right?
Which we could all assume, like, hey, upper middle class, yeah, we're doing good, we're rich, right? You could feel that way, but
yeah,
but that's not really the case, because we don't own all the bonds that, but
no, right, exactly. So if you think about the mega rich, right, they own a good portion of the national debt. They own it because they've bought bonds. So rather than taxing them, we're paying them interest. Right. So do you think the rich, right? Do you think the rich want us to deficit spend? Absolutely they do, because they're the ones that are loaning the money.
Right. Yeah, it's
right.
tax-free.
And so instead of
right, yeah, exactly. So it's tax-free interest income that they get. So if you own a lot of it, then you can just live off that tax-free. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And on top of which, like, what they're not doing is they're not paying taxes, right? Because, like, one way to get rid of a deficit is you just increase taxes, like, right? Especially for the rich. Now, let's just say there's no, annual deficit. Well, that wouldn't be good for them, because now they're paying taxes. If we have a deficit, they're not only are they not paying taxes, they're lending us money, and they're getting interest on it. Terrible.
Yep. It's makes sense, when you think about it, how that could be a reason why, talk about the control of the country, and how it's, I think, changed over the last 50 years, and we've just exploded the debt. And now you make sense to say a little reason why that is the case, why we haven't tried to reach that goal from 25 years ago, to say we wouldn't have, and we shouldn't have, a national debt. We're the richest country in the world, and yet we've just continued to outspend the money that we actually pay in taxes, which is so hard to get your head wrapped around, how we pay so much as a middle class, pay so much in taxes, and see the decline of cities and towns in, suburban or rural America across the country, and, like, really the collapse of a lot of towns and main streets across the country, and it just makes you shake your head and say, how did we get to this point? And for me, and for a lot of people,
and it got worse during COVID, right? Like, because what ended up happening was, like, the government put in, I forget how many $1 trillion. It was about $25,000 per household, per person in the United States, something like that. Well, do you feel $25,000 richer? I'm going to assume no. Right? But somebody feels $25,000 richer. And so what happened? Well, what happened was, we got our 25,000 ish, right? Like, in other words, through PPP loans and through other things that happened, like where the government was giving money to employees so that they could survive. But then those employees were using the money to survive, right? So they were buying food, they were buying stuff on Amazon, they were buying all this stuff. So where did that money go? Well, that 25,000 went up to the rich, right? So you would spend on Amazon. Now it's, Bezos's money. You would spend on food. So now it's probably Bezos's money again, right? Like, he's got Whole Foods and a whole bunch of other things, right? So, like, the money went upwards. And they never tax that money back out of the system. So the rich have it. And what do the rich do with it? So let's say that we have 18 billionaires here in Pennsylvania. And let's just pretend that they only have 1 billion because they each have more than that. But if they have $1 billion, that means they make about $1 million a week in interest. So for doing absolutely nothing, they're making $1 million a week. That's a lot of freaking money. And what are they doing with that $1 million? Because that's really the issue, right? Like, so what they're doing with that $1 million, they're not spending it, right? They're not like you and I going out and have a dinner or whatever. They're buying houses, right? Not one house. They're buying blocks and blocks of houses. They're buying assets like gold and copper. They're buying land. They're doing all this stuff. And when they're doing that, they're outbidding us, right? And so when you look at affordable housing, you say, well, why is the housing not affordable? Well, yes. Do we need to build more houses? Sure. But also what's happening is they're buying our houses, the rich are, it's increasing the price. And instead of them selling the property, they're renting the property. So somebody who used to be able to buy a piece of property and then that would be their retirement, that's not happening anymore. So now that person's renting. And so they're never putting money away for retirement. Right. And this is happening because the rich get richer. They're making $1 million a week in interest.
Right.
And
they're like, I understand buying not just like housing, but access to water. You're like fundamental, like life and death, things that they're controlling the water in the Arizona kind of Colorado River area. Now, I'm not an expert in the area, but this is what I understand is going on, and it's pooling of investment money. And if you look at like who actually owns the companies and the board of directors that sit on top, or the ownership that sits on top, it all really comes down to a handful of companies. It's actually quite amazing how they all own each other. The banks own.
Yeah.
And you're left.
That's when
really a few companies that own all of the wealth, and then therefore a few people. Well, in my view, at least, compared to the 300 and something million Americans that are in here, a few people that actually own the country. So, and now they own the politicians because you can put money into the elections and control it with the media.
What Elon Musk was doing, right? He was buying politicians all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
And he was buying voters too, right? Like he was giving people money to like register to vote.
But honestly, so yes, that shouldn't be the law of the land to be able to do that, but they're not doing anything illegal right now. So even though it's crazy to us that this is okay, it's not illegal at all. It's totally fine under what the Supreme Court, a few members of the Supreme Court said, enough to get their favorable, opinion on it, to say that money is speech, corporations are people. This is not, a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling. This was 5-4. I think in the case Buckley Vallejo, it was like 4-3. Two Supreme Court justices took themselves out of it. So this is a contested issue, and yet we see no politicians addressing it. I love that fact that we've just spent a half hour talking about it, because this is what Americans believe is the central issue. And nobody until recently, Bernie Sanders is doing some, like I said, we need Republicans speaking out against it as well. And those people that speak out against it are going to become leaders on this issue. And I do believe that by you doing this is going to get attention that gives hope to people to say, you know what, there are candidates out there that we can rely on that are going to push for a constitutional amendment, are going to push forward bills to overturn Citizens United, put pressure on other legislators to act with integrity, to act with, heart and respect, and do what is right. So, this has been a great conversation so far about that. Tell us a little bit more about what your other positions are, because I don't want to leave that off the table.
Yeah, so I'm the controller right now. So what the controller is basically, a lot of people have heard of Doge, and now, which is fraud, waste, and abuse. And that's what we investigate: fraud, waste, and abuse. So we're not Doge as like Elon Musk was, but that's what we do on a regular basis. So an easy way to think about that is payroll every 2 weeks. We audit the payroll. We make sure that it's correct. We make sure that people have signed off on their workers, things like that. That's sort of a simple way. But what we also do is we also take a look at things like healthcare for our employees. So for example, Lehigh County spends about $30 million on healthcare for its employees. So we did an audit. We divided that healthcare into two groups. One was the pharmacy group. So that's like when you go to the pharmacy and you pay your copay, we pay the rest. So if you have a $100 product, you pay a $10 copay. Lehigh County pays the $90 for your drug. So we're self-insured. So on the pharmacy side, when we did an audit, we found out of $7 million that we spend, $3 million basically worth of grift, meaning money that we could do better with. And so we ended up changing providers. And when we did that, like we literally saved about $3 million, every year for the last 3 years. So nearly $9 million. So first off, just as an aside, that is one of the reasons that I'm for single payer healthcare, because I have seen with my own eyes, what the numbers look like. And there's just so much, like we didn't even have to negotiate more. We just changed vendors, right? One vendor to the next, buying the same product. We got a better deal. And that's not even going in and saying, hey, I want 10% discount, 20% discount. No. So with basically doing nothing, we were able to save nearly 40% on pharmacy. And so we've done stuff like that. I also did stuff with prisoner phone calls. So
one of the things for like reforming, obviously the insurance industry.
That's my goal. Like I think
like medical insurance. Not medical care, but medical insurance.
Correct.
Letting people go into and use, instead of us paying premiums into the actual Aetna's or United Healthcares, we instead pay our premiums into a single payer, or a single system, which is like a government system, right?
Could be, yeah.
So it's like as if Aetna became a government agency. Is that like, and they would then, everybody pays into them, and then we get free healthcare after that. So we just pay the premium in to them, and then everything after that is free.
Yeah, I don't want to say free because it implies we're not paying anything, but yes, like in other words, it becomes a part of the nation. The nation is providing. Right. So if you're
paying the healthcare, can just go to the doctor, then they've already paid their premium to the single payer system. And then when they want to go to the doctor, they can just go.
Yeah.
They don't have to pay at that point. And so
correct.
How does it depend on how much you pay into the single payer program? Is that like based off of your income level? So if you make more, then you pay more in? Is like a percentage of your income?
So what there have been multiple suggestions. Bernie had come out with one, Warren had come out with them. So they're slightly different. So like in some cases, what they're going to do is they want to charge the employer 10% of whatever their employee salary is. And then the employee, I think it was 2 or 3% of whatever their salary is. And like when you look at that, an average employer is probably already paying 10% for their or more for their healthcare for their employees, not including restaurants, right? And things like that who don't provide any insurance. But for those that do provide insurance, it's going to be more than 10%. And the employee is likely paying more than 2% in their copay, plus their premium, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of that would go away. Now, what would end up happening would be like restaurants would have to start paying, cashiers would have, people that have cashiers would have to start paying. But you're not talking about like at 10%, if you think about it, some of these people are making $7.25 an hour, right? So you're talking about an additional 7 cents, 70 cents, You're not talking about a ton of
Right.
money.
For the
And
right.
so like,
You're talking about people living below the poverty line for that. They probably don't have to
right.
pay.
Exactly.
They're going to get it totally free because they're not going to be paying income tax because if you're making 7.25, 7.50 an hour, you're not paying income tax, right? You're getting it all back probably. Or,
Yeah, the employer would still have to pay.
the employer. Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Right. So the employer would have to pick up that 70 cents. And so like, assuming that they did, they're going to increase your hamburger by 2 cents. Like what, like remember, like, this is not a massive amount. It's done by the, in that particular case.
And if it's somebody making like more reasonable, like 50,000 a year, then it's 5,000 for the employer to pay.
The employer.
Which right now they might even be paying more than that for that.
Oh, they definitely are.
Right. Yeah. And then the employees
and average
paying more premium as well. So on a $50,000 salary, if it's 2 to 3%, that's like what, 1,000 or 1,500 for the employee, right? It sounds like to me, it's as far as like the insurance cost goes, it costs less for everybody involved.
And it just happens to be there's more people.
Right.
Right. Like that's how it works.
And who
it works
this?
because
Who hates this?
Who hates this? The insurance companies.
Right.
Right. And the owners of the insurance companies. Right. Because like and maybe some of the employees,
they're the largest contributors to politicians. Is that right? Or that lobbying group, those companies are
I don't know if they are the largest, but they are certainly one of the largest for sure. Yeah.
So this is directly kind of this cost for insurance directly comes back to money in politics being at the center of it, where you're not supporting what the voters want, the will of the voters to be able to have affordable insurance. Instead, it's overpriced insurance with heavy profits. And it's unfortunate too, because then you see what happened, and it's terrible with the CEO of United Healthcare. Like that should never have to happen. You're right. And it's a bottom.
Well, I mean, I think the most interesting thing, right, was the joy, right? There was a lot of people that were happy about this particular event and, and like, but it goes to show how bad it is.
Yeah.
Right. It goes to show how bad people think the insurance companies are. Because they are doing, they are holding your life in their hands.
They probably need some policy reform, That's it. Probably. Yeah. They do. I'm sorry I said probably. I mean, they need reform. And
they absolutely need reform. Because that shouldn't happen.
Another hot topic right now. Americans are not happy with the insurance industry. Everything is going up by 20% every single year, and 20% on top of 20% on top of 27. 5 years, and you doubled your insurance cost for a household. So, if you're a homeowner and you're paying that insurance bill, within 5 years, that bill just doubled. And now you have to pay higher groceries. You have to pay higher utilities and higher insurance. You're not saving anything for your children, for your future, for your retirement. So many things come back to money in politics and the control of it. And you say, like, how does government play a role in our lives? And we don't want to think about it. Gosh, does it? It's directly impacting the satisfaction or the suffering level of people with this. That's what got me motivated.
Look, we have to tax the rich beyond getting money out of politics. We have to tax the rich.
What do you mean by the rich?
So really, I would say anybody who has more than 10 million, just to be fair, but it's really the ultra rich that we're talking about, the 1%, that's probably the most important to tax. And the issue really is, I mean, so if you think about it like Monopoly there's only so much money, right? And the goal is to get all the money, right? Well, we're not so much different. Like, while that simplifies it, at the end of the day, there is only so much money in the United States, right? So it's about like $22 trillion. That's the pot, if you will, the monopoly money, and someone's hoarding it. And so like, if you're getting interest on $1 billion at $1 million a week, well, where's that money coming from? right? If there's only 22 trillion, if there's only a monopoly board of money, where is that money coming from? It has to be coming from the poor or the middle class, the poor, right? It has to be coming from somewhere else. And that is what's happening. Like money is traveling up right now to the wealthy. And so when I say the wealthy, like typically what I'm talking about are people that don't have to work and could live off of their interest alone.
Mhm. So it's basically it's changing some of the rules that would allow for taxing of interest or capital gains on people.
Yeah, or just wealth.
10 million, basically, or just wealth.
Yeah.
Wealth tax.
Yeah, you
So
might
it's
just
kinda
look
like
at the
property
wealth and say,
tax.
okay, he's got right.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There's like, what I will say, it's hard to tax the rich, right? Because they got lots of lawyers, they got lots of lobbyists, they've got lots of, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be trying, right? Like we should be trying. And there's nothing wrong with being rich, by the way. Like I'm not like, they're not my enemy. But what I want to make sure of is like that our kids, aren't getting poorer and poorer because that's what's happening. Right. Like that's why kids can't afford to.
Our country's getting poorer and poorer too. Yeah, our country's getting poorer and poorer too. Right. I mean, what is
right, and we still say this is,
we're in debt.
We still say this is the richest country, right? We say it's the richest country. Who has it?
Yeah. So
right.
So Mark Pinsley for Congress is a guy that is going to be bringing these issues to the forefront. And that's what I love. And Mark, you're not alone. This isn't so we're connecting with, and others are connecting too. This 75 candidate coalition is just getting started. I love it. Because
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on, man. I'm talking about.
Yeah. Look, if you don't mind my plugging my website, which is votemarkpinsley.com. I'd love to have people come and visit, see what they think. Obviously, donate if they can. Unfortunately, but we like the smaller dudes.
One of the things is knowing where the money's coming from as well. So I'm sure you would be happy to take a donation from somebody that could afford a larger donation, right, without influence.
Sure.
But part of this pledge, this candidate integrity pledge, is letting everybody know who those people are, or what those groups are. So, part of this pledge, I'm going to just have to read just below real quick. It's basically is to reject dark money, right? And that means all contributions from political action committees and super PACs that don't fully disclose their donors. That's rejecting all contributions from those 50C4 organizations that don't disclose their donors.
Yeah.
Decline any anonymous donation exceeding $100.
Yeah.
And then rejecting big money. So any big money individual, corporation, or organization that's more than $3,500 per campaign cycle is the pledge. And then transparency. So giving an accurate record to the voters to see where it's coming from. So you signed this pledge. There's a number of other people that have signed this pledge as well. And we're going to have a couple of them on after you. So I'm looking forward to that as trying to help boost, the campaigns of these real grassroots candidates that are trying to make change, bring forth a constitutional amendment, bring forth reform to end the system of legalized corruption, right? And
I'm really excited about what you guys are doing.
It's not all the politicians. It's the system that needs to be updated. So, Mark, what was your website again?
VoteMarkPinsley.com. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can find his email address to reach out to get more information. I'm sure there's like a Facebook probably you have as well. And the links for those are on the website.
On the website. Yeah.
Mark, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure, talking. We could talk more and and maybe we schedule one in the future. We kind of check in, see how it's going, and
That'd be great.
yeah. Oh, and we are planning right now a leadership summit. So I would like to invite you to be part of this leadership summit, probably at the end of September, where we're going to.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Leaders from organizations, candidates that are supportive of getting money out of politics, and media, and also academia as well, trying to bring together groups so that we can make a cohesive, collaborative, actionable plan heading into the 2026 primaries and general election to promote and see grassroots candidates have success next year, so that we can change the course that we're on right now. So that's a little bit about what we have up our sleeves to come. So
awesome.
Mark, wish you the best. And let's stay in touch.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're quite welcome. So that wraps up another episode of the 75 podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and staying with us this whole time. And as a reminder, please like this and share this, and subscribe as well. So we look forward to bringing more candidates to you and more information about this issue, this central issue of money in politics. Thank you, and take care.